It's exciting to present at the Colleton County Memorial Library our special guest.
Come on everybody, friends one and all, let's come together, let's break down those walls. We're gonna listen and we're gonna learn, having fun all the way. Somebody said, let's listen and learn together. Let's sing and learn forever. Let's listen, sing, and learn.
Hi, we're about to do Zoom, our first Meet the Author, and I'm so thankful for these ladies, Allie and Kylie, and you'll be seeing more of them, but she's usually behind the camera. Get ready for Author Day.
I'm excited about meeting different authors. Miss Shiela is going to introduce us to a variety of authors who write children's books. Here's Miss Shiela with an author.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm excited. We have a special guest in the house. Yes, it is one of my favorite authors, Margaret READ MacDonald, and you get to meet her today. Let me give you a little bit of information about Margaret READ MacDonald. She breathes the life into traditional folktales, sharing them in exciting performances, using them to enable beginning storytellers, and publishing them in picture books and folktale collections. Miss MacDonald, or Miss Margaret, as she allows me to call her, is from Southern Indiana, and I'm so glad she agreed to join us today. So boys and girls, help me celebrate Margaret READ MacDonald. Hi, Miss MacDonald, how are you?
I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad you were able to come.
And you know, you asked where I was from, and I said Southern Indiana because that's where I was born and raised, but I live in Seattle now.
Really?
Clear across the country. Yeah.
So you are in South Carolina right now, though. Miss MacDonald, we want to dive right in, and I would love for you to share your heart because we have the privilege of hearing your heart through the many books that you've written. And the first question we want to ask is, when did you start writing?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I started writing in 4th grade. Wow. I didn't get published then, but I really had stories in my head and poems in my head. And we didn't have a lot of money in those days, so we didn't have like notebooks lying around. So I asked my mama if she'd buy one at the dime store for me.
Oh.
And she did. And I wrote little poems and little stories, and I wrote a little play about a green fairy and a pink fairy. And my neighbor girl and I made puppets out of paper mache, out of newspapers and flour and water, and dressed them, and we acted out my play. So I was a little playwright when I was in 4th grade.
I love that.
So I always wanted to write, and I was always writing. So if you want to write, you just got to start early and keep on writing.
What inspired you to be a writer, and where did you get your ideas for your beautiful books?
Well, I really love folk tales. And so I became a children's librarian, which is the best career in the world, as you know. You get to spend all your life reading books and telling people about books and doing book activities. What could be more fun? But I really love the storytelling the most of all. So, so I decided to go back to school and get a PhD in folklore. That means you go to the university for a long time and study many subjects. All of mine were about folklore. The folklore of Africa, the folklore of Asia, the folklore of Latin America, folk music, folk songs. It was really fun. And I got what's called a PhD. And then I did an index for my dissertation all about folktales from around the world. Mm-hmm. And I was telling more and more folktales. And then I started to teach classes in storytelling at the university. Because now I had a PhD, I could teach at the university. And I needed some really easy to tell stories for my classes. So I began to put them in books and publish books for teachers and librarians, like 20 Tellable Tales and When the Lights Go Out, 20 Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And teachers and librarians liked them. And one day a publisher said, why don't you give us a picture book? And I said, oh, yes, I'm going to do that. And that's how the first picture book came out.
Wow. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I am a published author. I'm a self-published author. I haven't had the privilege of getting a traditional publisher to pick me up, but it's exciting. So this is a question for you. I think everyone in the world knows that Pickin' Peas is one of my favorite books. Tell us, how did that come about? The illustrations are awesome, but I love picking peas, putting them in my pail, you know, and land on my knees. I love that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, this is the book, Pickin' Peas.
Yay!
And I found all my stories by usually looking in folktale collections that folklorists and anthropologists have collected from storytellers in the field. They've been out there in their house or hearing them telling and wrote them down, and then they put them in a book. And so every year in the spring, I used to go to 10 different schools and tell stories all day about summer reading club. And I would go to the library in April, and I would bring back from the university library big bags full of all these folklore collections from all around the world. And I'd sit down and I'd go through them and I'd read them and look for stories. And I like stories that have repetition, like Pickin' Peas, put in my pail, that you do over and over so the kids can participate. That's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So that's why most of my books have that kind of participation in them. And I found Pickin' Peas in a book at the University of Washington Library, but I found it in 2 different places. And one was in a collection of stories from a magazine called Southern Workman, and it was by a lady from Calhoun, Alabama. And in 1897, she gave a reporter permission to put her story in that magazine.
Wow.
So the story's really old. And then I got it in another place in the Journal of American Folklore from 1922 from Elizabeth City County, Virginia, by a woman named Sarah Demings. So there were 2 different versions, and they were both collected from a storyteller telling them in the South.
I love it. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Convinced the publisher to publish it. And then Pat Cummings did the illustrations, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York. And this little girl is her niece. She used her for the model for the story. Isn't that amazing?
I love that.
I love the expression on the rabbit and the girl. And I love the way Pat designs the page. There's one here I just think is so clever. Look at this. The illustrator has to decide where they're going to leave space on the page for text.
Right.
I write it, but it has to fit somewhere. So look what she did. She designed, it's kind of hard to see, but she designed it. She designed it so that, can you see that? How that, where the words are? They're under the little girl's tummy. So she designed the whole page to go right around, wrap around the words.
I always wondered about that. So the illustrator has the text and they arrange it on the page?
Yes.
Not the author?
Well, no, not the author. And then there's someone called a book designer that decides what typeface and exactly where to put it. And in this case, the designer added, I don't know if you can see, they added some of the words in colored print.
Yes.
So the Pickin' Peas, put in my pail, is actually in green print here, and it goes like squirrely across the page. So the book designer does that. So there's people, there's the author, there's the illustrator, there's the book designer, there's an editor who edits my words and makes sure that they're the way they want them and can ask me to change things. And I can say yes, no, or maybe.
I love that.
All kinds of people working on it.
Well, as a self-publisher, you have to wear all those hats.
Yes, you do all. And you have to also distribute it and sell it and market it, which I don't have to do. My publisher does that for me.
Exactly. Well, you know, and that's where it goes lacking. Well, on to the next question. Who is your spending this great time. Now, children, it's time to go. Thanks for watching Miss Shiela's reading show. Hope you listened and you learned and remember all the things you heard. We hope, children, next week that you will return. If you enjoyed watching us, please like and subscribe.
Bye-bye. What folk am I?